The sun hung low over West Texas, casting long shadows across the dusty auction yard. The air was thick with the scent of hay and sweat, and the crowd buzzed with anticipation. But Zephyr Dorsey wasn't there for the spectacle. Her eyes were locked on the black stallion in the pen, his coat gleaming like polished obsidian, his white star blazing like a warning. Britter. The horse they called Cursed, the horse that had dragged her father to his grave. And yet, as she watched him pace restlessly, his wild eyes meeting hers, she felt something stir deep inside, a flicker of recognition, of shared pain. She couldn't let him go. Not again. The auctioneer's voice cut through the murmurs. Sold to Mr. Ward Kellum. The name hit Zephyr like a punch to the gut. Ward Kellum, her father's former partner, the man who had always seemed too smooth, too calculating. She pushed through the crowd, her boots kicking up dust, her heart pounding. That horse isn't for sale, she declared. Her voice steady, despite the storm raging inside her. The auctioneer blinked, surprised. Miss, the bidding is closed. He's already sold. But Zephyr wasn't listening. She stepped forward, her hand on the gate latch. Not anymore. The crowd gasped as she slipped into the pen. Briar reared, his hooves slashing the air, his eyes wild with fear and fury. But Zephyr didn't flinch. She stood her ground, her gaze locked on his. Easy boy, she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. It's me. It's Zephyr. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, slowly, Briar lowered his head, his ears twitching, his breathing steadying. He stepped closer, and Zephyr reached out, her fingers brushing his velvet muzzle. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she unhooked the chain from his neck and led him out, the massive stallion following her like a shadow. Whispers followed them as they walked through town. That's Salem Dorsey's girl, someone muttered. Thought she'd left for good. What's she doing with that devil horse? Zephyr ignored them, her focus on the road ahead. The ranch, her family's ranch, loomed in the distance, its once proud fences now sagging, its buildings weathered and forgotten. It had been 3 years since she'd left, since the day her father's body was brought back, broken and lifeless, dragged by the very horse she now led. The town had called it an accident, blamed Briar for being untamable, but Zephyr had always known there was more to it. And now, with Briar by her side, she was determined to find out the truth. The ranch felt like a ghost of its former self. Dust covered every surface, and the air was heavy with memories. Zephyr led Breeder to the corral, letting him roam free, while she stood on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was almost peaceful, but the ache in her chest wouldn't let her forget. She remembered the day it all fell apart, the storm that had come out of nowhere, the frantic search, when Breeder returned alone, the reins dragging in the mud. The town had been quick to judge, quick to label Breeder a killer. But Zephyr had seen the way her father looked at Ward Kellum in the weeks before his death, the tension in his voice when he spoke of their partnership. There was something wrong, something hidden, and she was going to uncover it. That night, as the wind howled through the empty rooms, Zephyr couldn't sleep. She wandered into her father's study, a place she hadn't entered since the funeral. It was exactly as he'd left it. His rodeo trophies on the shelf, his old saddle in the corner, and on the desk, a leather-bound journal. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, the pages filled with her father's neat handwriting. The early entries were filled with pride, about her, about Breeder, about their life on the ranch. But as she read further, the tone shifted. There were mentions of disagreements with Ward, of missing funds, of suspicions that Ward was cutting corners. And then, in an entry dated just days before his death, her father had written, I fear Ward is up to something dangerous. He's been talking about Breeder's medication, saying it's necessary for his performance. But I think he's tampering with it. I need to be careful. Zephyr's heart raced. Tampering with Breeder's medication, could that have caused the accident? She closed the journal, her mind racing. She needed more answers, but where to look? Then she heard a sound outside, Breeder pawing at the ground near the old barn, as if trying to tell her something. She grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the night, the wind whipping her hair as she approached the barn. Breeder stood by the tack room door, his eyes fixed on her. What is it, boy? She whispered, opening the door. Inside, everything was as she remembered, saddles, bridles, and her father's personal effects. But something felt off. She knelt down, noticing a loose floorboard near the back wall. With trembling hands, she pried it up, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside was a cassette recorder, its tape labeled in her father's handwriting. For Zephyr. Her breath caught in her throat. This was it. The key to the truth. But as she reached for it, a noise outside made her freeze. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Someone was watching her. She grabbed the recorder and slipped it into her pocket, her heart pounding. Whoever was out there, they didn't want her to find this. And that meant she was closer to the truth than she realized. The wind had picked up, rattling the windows of the old ranch house, as Zepha sat in her father's study, the cassette recorder clutched in her hands. Her heart pounded as she pressed play, and her father's voice filled the room, urgent and afraid. Zepha, if you're hearing this, it means something's happened to me. I don't have much time. Ward Kellum. He's not who he seems. He's been switching Breyer's medication, replacing his sedatives with stimulants. He's been making him unpredictable, more aggressive, all for the sake of the shows. I confronted him, but he denied it. I fear he's capable of more than we know. If anything happens to me, know that it wasn't Breyer's fault. It was Ward's. Be careful, Zepha. He's dangerous. The tape clicked off, leaving Zepha in stunned silence. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized her father had known the truth all along, and he had died because of it. Anger surged through her, hot and fierce. She couldn't let Ward get away with this. Without thinking, she grabbed the recorder and stormed out of the house, mounting Breyer in one fluid motion. "Let's go, boy," she whispered, and they took off towards Ward's ranch, the wind whipping through her hair. The Kellum estate was grander than she remembered, with its manicured lawns and imposing house. But today, it felt like a fortress of lies. She dismounted and tied Breyer to a post, striding towards the front door with purpose. Ward answered her knock, his smile fading as he saw her. "Zepha, what a surprise. What brings you here?" "You know exactly why I'm here," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I know what you did to my father." To Breyer. Ward's eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." She pulled out the cassette recorder and pressed play, letting her father's accusing voice fill the room. As the recording played, Ward's face paled, his composure cracking. When it finished, he tried to laugh it off. "That's ridiculous. Your father was paranoid." But Zepha saw the truth in his eyes. "You killed him. You tampered with Breyer's medication, switching his sedatives for stimulants, making him wild, and when it backfired during the storm, you let everyone think it was Breyer's fault. But I know better now." Ward stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. "You're making a big mistake, Zepha. Some things are better left buried." Zepha didn't flinch. "Not this time, Ward. The truth will come out." With that, she turned and left, her heart racing, but her resolve stronger than ever. She knew she had to take this to someone who could help. Sheriff Holt. Back on Breer, she rode to the sheriff's office, the town passing by in a blur. Inside, Sheriff Holt looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face. "Zepha, what's going on?" She placed the cassette recorder on his desk. "I found this hidden in our barn. It's my father's voice recorded before he died. He says Ward Kellum was tampering with Breer's medication, switching his sedatives for stimulants. That's why the accident happened. It wasn't Breer's fault, it was Ward's." Holt's expression grew serious as he listened to the recording. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "This is serious, Zepha. If what your father says is true, then Ward has a lot to answer for." "It is true," she insisted. "Breer led me to the tape. He knew where it was all along. My father must have hidden it there for me to find." Holt nodded slowly. "All right, I'll look into this. But you need to be careful, Zepha. Ward's got a lot of influence in this town. If he finds out you're digging around." "I know," she said, "but I can't let this go. My father deserves justice, and so does Breer." Holt met her gaze. "I understand. Just stay ready. This might get messy." Zepha left the office feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. She had taken the first step towards uncovering the truth, but the road ahead was fraught with danger. Yet, with Breer by her side and the sheriff on her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Zepha woke up with a start, her heart racing from the nightmares that still haunted her. But today was different. Today she had purpose. She had listened to her father's recording multiple times, each word fueling her determination to uncover the truth. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows across the dusty road as she dressed quickly and headed to Ward's ranch. This was the man who had betrayed her father, who had let him die for his own gain. She couldn't let him get away with it. The Kellum estate loomed ahead, grander than she remembered, with its manicured lawns and imposing house. But today, it felt like a fortress of lies. Ward was outside, supervising some workers. When Zephyr rode up on Briar, he looked surprised to see her, but quickly masked it with a smile. Zephyr, what brings you here so early? You know why I'm here, she said, dismounting and walking toward him with purpose. I found my father's recording. He knew what you did. Ward's smile faded. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do. Zephyr pulled out the cassette player and pressed play. Her father's voice filled the air, urgent and accusing. Ward Kellum. He's been switching Briar's medication, replacing his sedatives with stimulants. He's been making him unpredictable, more aggressive, all for the sake of the shows. I confronted him, but he denied it. I fear he's capable of more than we know. If anything happens to me, know that it wasn't Briar's fault. It was Ward's. Ward's face turned pale as the recording ended. He tried to laugh it off. That's nonsense. Your father was paranoid, but Zephyr saw the truth in his eyes. You killed him. You switched his sedatives for stimulants, making Briar wild, and when it backfired during the storm, you let everyone think it was Briar's fault. Ward stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. You're making a big mistake, Zephyr. Some things are better left buried. Not this time, she said firmly. The truth will come out. With that, she turned and left, mounting Briar and riding back to town. She knew she needed more than just her word against Ward's. She needed official help. At the sheriff's office, Sheriff Holt listened intently as Zephyr played the recording again. His expression grew serious as he heard Salem's accusations. This is serious, Holt said, after a moment of silence. If what your father says is true, then Ward has a lot to answer for. It is true, Zephyr insisted. Briar led me to that tape. My father hid it for me to find. Holt nodded slowly. All right, I'll look into this. But you need to be careful, Zephyr. Ward's got a lot of influence around here. I know, she replied. But I can't let this go. My father deserves justice. Holt met her gaze. I understand. Just stay safe. As Zephyr left the office, she felt a mix of hope and apprehension. She had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, but she knew the road ahead would be dangerous. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard noises outside. Peering through the window, she saw figures moving in the darkness, men with flashlights approaching the ranch. Her heart pounded as she realized they were coming for her. Grabbing her rifle, she stepped onto the porch, Bridger by her side, his ears pinned back, sensing the danger. Leave now, she shouted, her voice steady despite her fear. The men hesitated, then one of them spoke. We're just here to talk. I don't think so, Zephyr said, raising the rifle. I know who sent you, and you can tell Ward that I'm not backing down. The men exchanged glances, then slowly retreated back into the darkness. Zephyr stood there for a long time, watching them go. Her heart still racing. She knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, Sheriff Holt arrived at the ranch with news. I've issued a warrant for Ward's arrest based on your father's recording and some other evidence we've uncovered. Zephyr felt a surge of relief. Thank you, Sheriff. We'll bring him in today, Holt said. At the rodeo grounds, during the fair. It's public. Everyone will see that justice is being served. Zephyr nodded. I'll be there. As they rode to the fairgrounds together, Zephyr felt a sense of closure approaching. The truth was finally coming out. The fair was in full swing, the air filled with the smell of barbecue and the sound of laughter. But Zephyr's focus was solely on Ward's arrest. When Sheriff Holt and his deputies approached Ward, who was mingling with the crowd, there was a collective gasp as Holt declared, Ward Kellum, you're under arrest for the murder of Salem Dorsey. Ward protested his innocence, but Holt held up the cassette recorder. We have evidence that says otherwise. The crowd murmured in shock as Ward was handcuffed and led away. Zephyr stood nearby, tears of relief streaming down her face. Her father's name was finally cleared. With Ward behind bars, the truth about her father's death was finally out in the open. The sun dipped low over West Texas, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Zephyr stood by the corral, watching Bridger graze peacefully. The weight that had burdened her for so long had finally lifted. Ward Kellum was behind bars, his lies exposed, and the truth about her father's death had come to light. The townsfolk, once so quick to judge, now approached her with apologies and words of support. Zephyr, we're so sorry for what we said about your father, said Mrs. Jenkins, the baker, her eyes filled with regret. We didn't know the truth. Zephyr smiled softly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. It's all right, Mrs. Jenkins. We all make mistakes. What matters is that the truth is out now. The next day, the town held a small ceremony to honor Salem Dorsey. The rodeo arena was filled with people, old friends, neighbors, and even those who had once whispered behind her back. The mayor stood at the podium, his voice steady as he spoke. Today, we gather to right a wrong that has lingered for too long. Salem Dorsey was a man of integrity, a skilled horseman, and a beloved member of our community. His death was a tragedy, but it was also a miscarriage of justice. Thanks to his daughter Zepha, the truth has come to light. Ward Kellum has been arrested for his crimes, and we can finally clear Salem's name. The crowd applauded, their cheers echoing through the arena. Zepha felt a lump in her throat as she looked over at Sheriff Holt, who gave her a nod of approval. He had been there for her when it mattered most, and she was grateful. After the speeches, the mayor unveiled a new plaque on the main gate of the arena. It read, Salem Dorsey Gate. In memory of a true cowboy. Zepha stepped forward to touch the plaque, her fingers tracing her father's name. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. I'm so proud of you, Dad, she whispered. Later, as the ceremony wound down, Zepha found herself surrounded by townspeople eager to make amends. Zepha, your father was a good man, said old Mr. Thompson, the blacksmith. I always knew there was more to that story. I'm glad you found the truth. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, Zepha replied, her heart warmed by his words. Even children approached her, asking to pet Briar, who stood calmly by her side. Can I pet him? Asked the little girl with wide eyes. Of course, Zepha said, smiling. Briar is gentle, as long as you treat him with respect. The girl reached out tentatively, and Briar nuzzled her hand, causing her to giggle with delight. Zepha watched, her heart swelling with pride. Briar wasn't cursed. He was a hero, just like her father. After the ceremony, Zepha visited her father's grave. The cemetery was quiet, the air still and peaceful. She knelt down, placing a single red rose on the headstone. I did it, Dad, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I cleared your name. Briar and we did it together. I wish you were here to see it, but I know you're watching over us. She stayed there for a while, talking to her father, sharing her feelings, and finding solace in the knowledge that he was at peace. The wind rustled through the trees, almost like a gentle reply, and Zepha felt a sense of calm wash over her. Later that day, Zepha returned to the ranch, where Briar waited for her. She saddled him up, and they rode out into the open fields, the wind in their hair and the sun on their backs. For the first time in years, Zepha felt truly free. She had cleared her father's name and redeemed Briar's reputation. Together, they had overcome the darkness that had haunted them. As they rode, Zepha thought about her father. She could almost hear his voice, encouraging her, telling her that she had done well. Tears of joy streamed down her face, but they were tears of happiness, of closure, of peace. Briar, sensing her emotions, nuzzled her gently. Zepha leaned down and hugged his neck. We did it, boy, she whispered. We did it, and with that they galloped off into the horizon, two souls forever bonded, ready to face whatever the future held. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Zepha took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the day linger in the air. She was home, truly home, and she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she could face them with Briar by her side.